Hi everyone, and welcome to the Coloring Art Collection Spotlight. I'm Ali, the Museum Education Coordinator at the American Philosophical Society, or APS. Today we'll be coloring in our Mastodon friend here. Pretty cool. Now this piece has a French name, but I translated it for you today. It's called The Skeleton of the Young Mammoth in the Museum at Philadelphia by Edouard de Montuil in 1821. Now, this piece is in our collections, and you can actually see it online on our digital archive. As you can see, we're also big friends of the Mastodon. We even have T-shirts made for him. So I just would like you to join me as I color it in, and I tell you some fun facts as we go. Come on.
So I'm going to be using two colors throughout this coloring spotlight today. Right now I'm using a peach beige color to show the real bones of the Mastodon during the time, and I'm also going to be using a light brown color to show the replica wooden bones of the Mastodon. And we'll get to why they had to make replica wooden bones a little later. This creature on the page is not actually a mammoth, so the title's a little deceiving, but an American mastodon, or Mammut americanum. Both of them look similar to elephants, kind of like prehistoric elephants, but they're not elephants. Also, the mastodon was living before the mammoth and went extinct around 12,000 years ago. Now, our mastodon friend here was excavated in 1801 by painter and museum owner Charles Willson Peale. You might know Peale from his paintings of famous founding fathers, which are in many history textbooks today. What you might not know is that Peale opened up the first successful public museum right here in Philadelphia. Peale heard in 1801 of these huge bones discovered in New York by a farmer, and he went up to investigate. After seeing what the farmer had discovered, he received funding from the APS to dig up the bones. In the 1800s, many people had never seen fossils like these before, so imagine uncovering all these bones and trying to figure out what bone goes where. Think of it like trying to put together a big puzzle without knowing what the picture was. That's pretty difficult. So think about these bones that I'm coloring in right now and trying to put them together without knowing the end image. Peale did collect a lot of bones, but there were some bones that were either missing or they were broken already in the pit or were broken while being taken out of the pit. So he would later find other sort of pits with fossils in them. And to also help him while he's putting the mastodon together, he would compare it with animals that look similar to it, so like an elephant, to see what bones went where, to make it a little bit easier for him. And then he would use the fossils from the other pits to make replicas to fill in the gaps for the missing bones that they had in the skeleton. Peale would later bring this mastodon back to his museum. His museum was originally in his house in Philadelphia at 3rd and Lombard Street, and would later move it to the APS's Philosophical Hall from 1794 to 1810, where this mastodon would later be on display. After that, Peale would move his museum to the State House, or what is now called Independence Hall. But Peale was not alone. He had a big family to help him in his museum business. He had around 17 kids, especially one of his older sons, Rembrandt. Peale and his sons made sure to keep together the bones they found, and in the end, they assembled 2 complete skeletons and 1 partial skeleton. Like I mentioned before, Peale used wooden replicas of bones that were missing to fill in the gaps. However, the tusks he made out of paper mache. One of these skeletons is this guy right here that they put together, that I'm coloring in, and he was displayed for the public to see. One of these visitors was Edouard de Montuil, who was traveling around the world to see some of the biggest sites, which include Peale's museum in Philadelphia and the Mastodon. So think of this like a travel guide showing the cool places that he went. Other places he saw was Niagara Falls, the Sphinx in Egypt, and Pompeii in Rome. So pretty cool. What's also interesting about this image are the tusks that you see me coloring in, and that they're pointed down. The tusks are supposed to be pointed up. The Mastodon was an herbivore, so that means it only ate plants. Tusks being pointed down generally don't make any sense, and if you think of elephants too, the tusks are pointed up. One reason is they were trying their best at the time, and they just saw what worked, what fit, and went with it. They also originally thought the mastodon was a carnivorous, semi-aquatic creature, so they were trying their best. The other possible reason behind putting the tusks down was to make the creature seem more ferocious. This has to do with French botanist Comte du Buffon publishing a theory called the theory of American degeneracy, which talks about how creatures in the New World, like in America, were small and weak due to and would get small and weak over time due to the climate, and not like the creatures in the Old World, which were big and strong, and pretty much what he says fantastic. This theory made Americans angry, Americans like Jefferson and Charles Wilson Peale, who didn't want it to hurt the growing Republic's reputation with the world. So Peale saw this as a way to create this strong, or Peale and his family saw this as a way to create a strong image of the mastodon and show the world that we have these big, strong creatures in this country. And like, here's the evidence. See, as I'm coloring in right now, look how big those ribs are. And that Buffon's theory was wrong. That might be another idea behind why the tusks are pointed down. Later on, Georges Cuvier, a French anatomist, would give the mastodon its name after the shape of his teeth that have a cone-shaped look to them. The shape of the mastodon's teeth first made people believe that it was a carnivore, so it ate meat. But it was later found out the teeth were cone-shaped to help grind branches and leaves. So isn't that funny? There's even a letter in our collection from Franklin talking about the teeth and coming up with theories about what kind of animal this was and what it ate. Charles Wilson Peale died, though, in 1827, and his children tried to continue to run the family museum. Unfortunately, the family was unsuccessful and had to close the museum. Most of the collections were sold off in 1848 to P.T. Barnum and Moses Kimball, and many of the collection, including People Thought the Mastodon, were destroyed in a series of fires in 1851 and 1865. However, the Mastodon did not go to Barnum or Kimball, but was instead sent to Europe to find prospective buyers. It was later bought by a German naturalist, Johann Jakob Kopp, for a museum in Germany, and is now in the collections of the State Museum of Hesse-Darmstadt in Germany. So as you can see, our mastodon friend has had quite a journey. It's actually made its return to the United States this year and is on display at the Smithsonian for the rest of the year. I do want to thank you all for coming to our Color Our Collection Spotlight. I'm just finishing up the platform here as I'm working around our friend's feet, and got to make sure to get in between those toes. And then we can see the final image. Gotta get the corners, and there we go. Perfect. All right.
All right, let's see our finished product. Pretty cool. Pretty fun. So if you'd like to color your own mastodon at home, the links to the coloring page, as well as the overall Color Our Collection website, and where you can find our mastodon friend in our digital archive, will all be located below in the description. That's it for me today. I want to thank you all for joining us for our Color Our Collection Spotlight. Stay tuned for future ones from us, from our collections to your home. See you later.